Have we finally reached the point where AI agents can not only build out film projects, but actually remember what we're building? Because one of the biggest problems that I've run into over the past couple of years isn't image quality. It isn't video quality. It's memory. You spend hours building characters, defining locations, creating visual rules, setting up your story world, and then a few prompts later, you're explaining the exact same things all over again. And honestly, when you're trying to build something bigger than a single image or a single video, that's where a lot of these workflows start to break down or become very tedious. So over the past couple of weeks, I've been building a project inside of InVideo Agent One to see if it could actually solve that problem. This is a real 6-episode Spanish microdrama with recurring characters, recurring locations, visual languages, video language Bible, production documents, all kinds of stuff. And with this, it has multiple agents working together to get this accomplished. And after spending some time with it, there are a few things that really stood out. But if you're new here, I'm Khalil from AI for Real Life, and I've been deep in the AI filmmaking space for the past few years, just testing tools, breaking workflows, rebuilding them, and figuring out what actually holds up when you try to use these tools inside of real creative projects. And what we're going to do in this video is walk through the exact setup I used for an episode of this series. I'll show you the project structure, the context system, the character Bible, the visual language Bible, the agents I created, and what actually came out on the other side. Because honestly, the interesting part isn't the final episode. It's how all the pieces stay connected along the way. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so here we are in InVideo Agent One. Let me back out of this so I can show you how we actually get here. This is basically the setup, and there's autopilot, agent. A lot of people know a lot about InVideo already. So for this one, we're going to be using the agent, and I already have the project set up, but right here is where you can build out your new agents and build out your projects. So for this one, let's jump in and I'll show you exactly what we did here. So I've been really exploring agents a lot lately, trying to understand them and trying to see where the technology is going. Because if we can cut out some of the tedious parts of the process of making AI videos and films, then I'm all about that, right? And then just understanding the future of these tools, which is kind of what I do. So when InVideo reached out to me about testing out their agent, I was all about it. And let's go ahead and talk about what I found out. All right, so here's the project right here. And the series is called Prometido con mi hermana, obsesionado conmigo, which translates to engaged to my sister, obsessed with me. That's what I'm talking about. Basically full on telenovela energy. So it's 6 episodes, vertical format, and it's built specifically for platforms like TikTok and Instagram and all the new microdrama platforms out there. Now, before we get into the agents, I want to show you what I think is one of the most important parts of this setup, and that is the context. So this one is one of the empty context boxes, so you can see what it looks like before everything is input into there. But this is one of the main things that caught my attention with this, is because this is all the stuff that it gathers and keeps in the background. This is like the brain of this whole thing, and that is the part that a lot of these tools are missing. So after seeing that, I was already intrigued. So this is one of the most important parts because really everything else that we're going to look at pulls from this. All right, so this is the episode that I built out. So now you can start to see what it looks like when it's filled in. And for this project, I already had the episodes mapped out, the brief, everything about it done. I had some example characters and all those things already built out. Now you can do all of this inside of InVideo, which I found out, but I had already had that stuff built. So I kind of had a head start going into this. So what I did was I took all that information and just dropped it into Agent One, and it built out all this stuff for me. So look through here at all the stuff that it has in its brain. We've got the references, the locked description, all the different character details, post sheets, and essentially whatever's missing with that, you can work with it and it helps build out these things for you. So for these kind of things, the more information that you give it up front, the more information that you either have or build with inside of this, the better off you're going to be because it defines the whole world, the characters, and all these things that can cause problems down the line. It's the same thing that I've been talking about in my other videos and in my school community where we talk about building out all these assets and everything so that everything stays consistent throughout the film. Well, this is that same process, but it's all within this system. So that's pretty intense. All right, so let's talk about the idea of this telenovela or microdrama or whatever this is. So the idea is that I think it's Lucia returns to Madrid to her sister Sophia's engagement party, and the groom turns out to be Mateo, the man who disappeared from her life years earlier without a word. All right, all these other things happen. Cool, whatever. Now, here's the thing. For this whole thing, most people, especially the ones starting off, just jump straight into generation. But I found that the more time I spend defining the project before I start generating, the better everything goes. That's how this whole thing is really set up to do for you. I mean, you could just tell it what you want and see what happens, but that's not the main thing that you want to do with a system like this. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the agents that were built within this thing in order to put this together. These are specialized agents. So you can have multiple agents working on the same project in this thing. So let's jump over here. So for episode 2, we've got the director. We've got the director agent, we have DP and visual language agent, and the showrunner agent. Now, these agents are all built based on their traditional roles so that we have a lot of the things covered in this process. And as you can see, as I'm scrolling through here, there's a lot that happened. So I gave it this description right here. You're the episode 2 director for this vertical Spanish microdrama. Episode 1 has already been built elsewhere, so use this InVideo project to knock out episode 2 because he denies. Use the attached episode 2 context package plus the attached visual references, also using the existing project context from the showrunner DP and the DP Bible for the series look. So essentially, this is what you do. You go out, you build out the agents. You can also ask it what is going to be best for a project like this, and it can build out these agents for you. So essentially what we have are specialized agents that take care of different parts of the process. And then the director that kind of overlooks everything. And then they all talk to each other and put this stuff together. All right, so I'm not going to walk through every single line of every single agent that we built here, but you can get the context here. Here's a showrunner agent right here and the DP visual language agent, which keeps everything in line when it comes to the director of photography and the visual language that we're going for here. Because a lot of times in projects, consistency is really one of the biggest challenges. And when you have everything in one place and it's all tied together, and whenever you make an adjustment, which was one of the big things that I liked about this, if you make an adjustment and say, I don't like this character, I want to change the wardrobe or whatever, it goes back through and updates the context so that there's no gaps in this thing. And that's one of the biggest things, because even if you make a change, even with your own system, you have to go through, you have to change the post sheets or the location or do whatever and make sure that everything is matched up, because down the line, when you're running another generation or another scene and that hasn't been updated in the film Bible or in the context and everything, then that stuff will get messed up and get missed down the line. So that's really huge here. So that's an overview on the context, and you can see how just deep that gets and how serious this is. Let's jump over to the notebook. So for the notebook, that is where the generations live. So you go through and you start the generation process. You can have it do them all at the same time. You can have it do it one at a time. And all right, let's go ahead and jump into this agent and let me show you just how this works. All right, let's go back pretty far so you can see what's really happening here. And one of the really things that I like about this is that you can just speak right into it, because one of the things that I really hate is having to type. And as you can see, this takes that out of the equation, which is huge, because without that, then you're bouncing back and forth or using Whisper Flow or something like that in order to get this done. But now you can do it right in here, which makes it much easier than typing all this kind of stuff out, especially when you can't type like myself. All right, so if you don't know anything about building out a film or a project or different things like that, you can get it all done within here. So you would ask it questions like, okay, well, here's the script. Let's go ahead and have you build out all the scenes for me. And it can do things like that. But if you already have an idea of what you want, then you can go ahead and feed it in, which I did. I had the script, I had everything. So then all it had to do was go through here and just map out the different scenes. Now with this, I'm not going to jump super deep into all of the things that went into this, but we actually had built out things like the hook strength and the grade, the guilt beat, different things that are involved in the whole micro drama ecosystem or anatomy, I guess you'd say. And we had all that stuff that the agent would go ahead and use that as a guideline when building these things out. Now, when I did this, here's the first pass on some of the generations. And the thing about this part is that I did not give it enough information. The beats weren't set. It was taking a generation and this is all that was happening. It was too slow for the whole micro drama sort of thing. So I went back through, I asked it to make some modifications. Then I also had questions about the element system, how it builds out different elements for these characters to keep consistency. So I just wanted to see what it had to say, and it does have the whole element system locked out. So after going through and talking to it a bit about what I wanted, the pace that I wanted to set for these, we went ahead and did some more generations. And this was not like a short process. So I'm not going to sit here and say that this took 5 minutes. This is a couple days going back and forth, not directly, but going back and forth with the agent, trying to figure out exactly what works best before getting everything knocked out. Some more of the generations that it came up with.
Todavía lo usas.
Es solo un reloj.
Entonces quítatelo. Eso pensé.
Okay, so once we got the beats down and we got everything locked in, the agent did a really good job of keeping the same lighting, keeping the characters, doing all these things. And as you can see, all the information that is feeding in to these different prompts. So once I felt comfortable with the outputs, I had to go ahead and finish the episode. And one of the other cool things about this is that it doesn't just do the clips and leave you with the clips. It'll compose everything together for you. So after going through the process, letting it do all these things for me without me having to go through and manually do all the editing, all of the prompts, putting in everything, making the changes myself, this was the final outcome.
Quítate.
¿Vas a huir otra vez?
Yo no fui quien huyó. Todavía lo usas.
Es solo un reloj.
Entonces quítatelo. Eso pensé.
Lucía,
Suéltame. O dime la verdad.
la verdad no te va a salvar.
No te pedí que me salvaras.
Anoche casi te besé.
Anoche casi te dejé. Macia. ¿Estoy interrumpiendo?
Oh, no. All right. So that is how this came out. So where the tools are right now with this agent, with the different elements, with Seedance 2.0, some of the shots, I don't know if we ended up using Kling with this one. We used Kling as a fallback, but I'm not sure if we ended up actually using it with this episode. All right. So it looks like this was all Seedance 2.0 that we ended up using with this, but that's the kind of quality that you can get right now. All right, so this is a question that a lot of you guys are going to be having is how much does something like this cost? So with the plan that I was on, it is the generative plan, which is at $200 a month. Now, I'm working with InVideo on this, so they were nice enough to give me this plan so I could test this out. But that's what we're looking at right here. $200 a month for the generative plan, and it goes from $20 all the way to $1,000 a month. Now the question is, how much did it cost to actually make this video? So let's jump over to usage. When I started this video, I was at 0. And I used 439 of the 700 credits that I had in my account. 2.3 gigabytes of my 400 gigabytes of storage are used, but that's between other projects also that I was testing out before this one. All right, so that equals out to $125.43 for that 1-minute micro drama video. So going into this, looking at something like that, is that cheap? No, that's not cheap, but this is not set up to really be for hobbyists is what I'm gathering from this. This is for the people that are getting paid to make real productions. Now, in a traditional setup to film a microdrama episode like that, you're going to be into the thousands of dollars, not $100-something. Now, the cost associated with this is not starting from scratch. So if I would have started from scratch, built out the characters within this, did all of the brainstorming and iteration within this, it would have been more expensive. So you have to keep that in mind. So this is one of the things that you need to think about when getting into these things is that it's not going to be cheap, but is it going to be cheaper than the traditional setup for certain things like this? So what was my takeaway after building this project? One of the biggest things that stood out to me was the whole context of keeping everything in one area and being able to build from that. So being able to have the visual language and have everything stay connected, that's really huge. And for larger projects, that's really a big deal. Because the bigger the project gets, the more expensive re-explaining everything becomes or the mistakes down the line become. So anyways, that's been my experience with Agent One so far, and I'm going to keep pushing this project and also just seeing how far this can go and testing this agent out more. So if you found any value in this walkthrough, go ahead and subscribe and do all those kind of things. And I cover AI filmmaking tools, workflows, and I'm really getting into agents lately to understand what are the best ones, the different price levels. So subscribe and follow along. All right, we'll catch you in the next one.